after that point will be what's going to happen in NADEAU's car with the valve spring that's failed. Almost certainly he's lost enough horsepower. He's going to have a real tough time of it from here on.
Well, that is true, and they were hoping that the rain will keep on because the valve spring, he's not going to have the performance if that's the problem. But they also said they may be able to change the ignition inside the car, and that might be the problem instead of a valve spring. So, you know, Jerry Nadeau's going to lose tremendous amount of track position here, though. He'll have to go right to the back when he comes in.
Yeah, and they're just guessing what the problem is right now. When they do get back up to full RPM and they change the ignition box, if that doesn't fix it, then they'll know it's something internal inside the engine, and they'll have a good idea their chances for victory tonight are going to be very much dimmer.
Still, what a big night for NADEAU, who 10 years ago was racing go-karts of all things, went from that to dirt track modified, to the Barber Saab series, European Formula Opals. He's worked as a roofer to pay the bills, mowed lawns, even towed show cars so that he could afford to race. And here tonight, he has dominated the front end of the Coca-Cola 600.
NADEAU has led 5 times for 110 of the 257 laps that we've run tonight. Let's go to pit road and Mike Massaro.
Well, Alan, as you know, a big factor right now is track temperature. We measured the temperature of the racetrack at the green flag. It was 103 degrees. Right now, we've got the thermometer. We're going to take a reading. As we do, we can see it is now 89.4 degrees, so it has dropped significantly. And of course, this is a factor because it will change the characteristics of these race cars. Talking to some crew chiefs, they expect this racetrack to get real tight, real fast. And with that in mind, we expect to see a lot of changes on pit road on the next stop.
It'll be interesting to see how many of the cars that stopped just under the caution for rain the first time come back in again to make changes to their cars now. Pit road is open this time. Here comes NADEAU down. Is that NADEAU? No, NADEAU stayed on the racetrack. NADEAU and Burton both stayed out. Well, that's a shock to me. Well, what is an absolute shock to me?
What I think they're doing now, Alan, is riding around, and they're trying to get as far as they possibly can. If they run 5 or 6 more laps around here, that's gas mileage. So they're going to stay out there till the last moment, then come in, because they're going to the rear anyhow.
Bobby Labonte's in. Matt Kenseth's in, Jeff Gordon's in, Dale Jarrett's in, Mark Martin's in, Jeremy Mayfield is in. These lead lap cars I'm calling off here.
Well, they've all had a chance to talk things over for quite a while. This is an opportunity to adjust the cars for a racetrack that has changed significantly.
Making either a wedge or a track bar adjustment on the Bobby Labonte car we saw in the pit stop there.
I think that was actually the wedge was being changed in the left rear of the car. So that's what they do. They sit down with the crew chief and they say, here's what we're doing. We maybe need to come on in and get things changed around. Bobby Labonte certainly is way back now, but hey, listen, a good race car will make up a lot of distance on a racetrack.
If you're new to NASCAR, wedge being the pressure of the jacking bolts on the springs, it affects the weight transfer of the car from corner to corner when it hits the banking. The track bar being what holds the rear end housing in place. You can raise or lower that to affect the handling on your car.
Pretty simple to understand. If you go down on the spring, it puts more tension on it. If you go up, it takes tension off the spring.
So Jerry Nadeau's going to stay out and hold on to the race lead. Jeff Burton will stay in second. It'll move Dale Earnhardt Jr. up to third. Well, here comes Burton giving up his spot on the racetrack to make his pit stop a lap later. Again, surprises me. Marty?
Well, Alan, the first time, to be honest, it was a miscommunication. Frank Stoddard threw his hands up in the air and wondered where Jeff Burton was, why he didn't come down pit road. Right now, the car's a little bit tight, but that was an hour ago. This is a very tough decision for these guys as to what they're going to do, and they're having all kinds of problems on the right rear. I think they're putting a rubber in the right rear, and also they think they might be able to make it on one more stop. So Jeff Burton maybe playing a little fuel strategy. Was supposed to come down pit road last time, but maybe this will help him in the end.
Well, it's not a huge problem. There's only 13 cars on the lead lap, and that's where Burton is going to come out. He'll be running right around number 13 spot when they take the green flag here, so not a big problem.
Robbie Gordon coming in, getting some attention paid to his car here under the caution flag. Gordon now aboard that machine. We told you that Rick Mast has stayed in the A.J. Foyt car. After suffering from some food poisoning, he's decided he's going to tough it out. Jeffrey Bodine still in the Power Team machine for the Joe Bessie operation. Tim Fedewa is in the John Andretti car, made that driver change earlier. We talked about the Bobby Labonte car and the pit stop they made and the adjustments they made. Mike Hogwood has more on that for us.
You remember they made an adjustment when we were under caution for the rain. They made a track bar adjustment the wrong way. They figured it out during this rain delay, so they came down on pit road and made the adjustment the correct way.
Well, I just can't figure this out. Here comes NADEAU now at the 1 to go signal.
And that's going to put him at the absolute tail end of all the cars that are on the lead lap. And why they hadn't decided to do this earlier is just an absolute mystery. It just doesn't seem to be a reasonable thing to do. But rolling the tire, that's a new rule this year. In fact, midway through the year, they have to get the tires away from the right side of the car, away from the right side of the pit box. If they don't do that, NASCAR will throw a penalty at them.
And they also did a wedge adjustment on the left rear when he was stopped there.
So NADEAU's going to come back out in 14th position for the restart. By the way, the Robbie Gordon car sitting on pit road is being held for 5 laps as a penalty for disobeying instructions given by a NASCAR official. So there's going to be a 5-lap penalty assessed there to Robbie Gordon, and you see the official standing in front of the car.
He might have stayed in Indianapolis. Yeah, he might well have stayed in Indianapolis and had a soda and maybe a Burger King.
Don't know what the instruction was that they were given that they've disobeyed, but it's going to be a 5-lap penalty for that. We're coming to the green flag. Going to go back racing at lap 261. Dale Earnhardt Jr. now takes over the lead. Dale Earnhardt is second. Ricky Rudd is third. Rusty Wallace is fourth. And Mike Skinner is fifth.
And just on the inside, Tony Stewart a lap down right now. He's going to put the pressure on Earnhardt to try to get back in the lead lap.
Stewart, the 15th place car, as we come down for the restart. About an hour after it started raining, the Coca-Cola 600 is back underway.
So much for pressure. He didn't even come close to getting the jump on Earnhardt Jr. He just flew out there.
Father and son, first and second.
Second time that's happened tonight. Junior moving down low to block Tony Stewart from trying to get his lap back. Here comes Stewart, peeking the inside. And Junior runs that thing awfully deep into turn 3. We've seen that trend this whole weekend. He really runs that car far into turn 3.
Yes, he does. He's very aggressive, and the car is up for the chore. He just drives her down there and then sticks, so why not?
Take a look at the Napa field summary now that we're back under green. Lets you know where everybody stands as we run down through it. The park up to 6th. Remember the drivers that made the stop under this caution. Bobby Labonte there, Matt Kenseth. Those are the drivers that made the stop under the caution. They are from 7th position on down. We've got a total of 14 on the lead lap. Labonte and Kenseth here, double wide for 7th and 8th positions. That's Johnny Benson just in front of them. Benson running in 18th position, a lap down. Let's go to pit road and Marty Snyder.
Well, the answer as to why Jerry NADEAU and why Jeff Burton and Matt Kenseth and those guys came down pit road and why Jerry and Jeff Burton waited so long, they think they can turn this into a race where they only have to stop one more time. Jeff Burton and Jerry NADEAU came down at lap 260. Now, if you add 70 laps to that, that's 330. 70 to that is the finish of the race. So these teams think they can make it on one more stop. That would be a huge advantage. I just asked Robbie Reiser, the crew chief from Matt Kenseth, can you definitely make it on one more stop? He said, absolutely.
Boy, I tell you, that's a big deal. And right now, Tony Stewart's got a big deal going. He's back on the lead lap just in front of our leader, Dale Earnhardt Jr.
To stay in front of him and get a caution flag.
Wow. He's not going to make it.
Junior had the nose of his car right up under the back bumper of Tony Stewart's. And how that upsets a car, think of the nose of that racing machine almost like a snow plow, but instead of pushing snow, it's pushing air. There's literally a bubble of air in front of the front air dam of those cars. And when you stick the nose right up against the back bumper of the car in front of you, that bubble of air you're snow plowing just literally pushes the back end of that car in front of you around and loosens it up. Jerry NADEAU trying to make up lost ground. 14th position is where he's fallen back to. He's not even up with the pack at this point. He's a little bit off, so that engine problem obviously is manifesting itself further.
But look who's in third spot. We just saw him in the corner of the shot. There he is now in the middle of your screen. Rusty Wallace. Now in second spot all of a sudden.
Rusty earlier in the race had not one but 2 penalties for speeding on pit road. lost some track position at that point. He lost 10 positions at one spot, from 6th back to 16th for one of the penalties. But he's picking his way back through, and it appears the change in track conditions has suited his car well.
Yes, and several years back, Rusty Wallace even lost a cylinder and won the race here because he drove the car so very, very hard in the corner. And you can see it sticking right on the bottom of the racetrack. That car is hooked up right now, but you have to remember, we're on new conditions here, a washed-down racetrack, and that probably made his car more competitive than before he stopped then.
Rusty finished second in both the 1997 and 1998 runnings of the 600, both times to Jeff Gordon, both times with different pit strategies.
And in 94, also second to Jeff Gordon. So that's 3 second places in the last 600s, all to the same guy.
The 97 race, Gordon and Wallace, one of them took 2 tires, one took 4. Gordon won the race. The 98 race was just the opposite. They did the opposite they'd done the year before, and the results came out the same. I know Rusty was particularly frustrated that night. He said, it doesn't matter. Last year, I did the different thing this year because I lost last year, and the results still came out the same. You see Wallace there, with the lap car of Tony Stewart between himself and the leader, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Been a good night as far as time spent out front for Dale Jr.
It has, and he's really taken a more or a less aggressive line around the racetrack right now. He's not leaning on the tires like he was earlier in the race. He's running pretty much in the middle part of the track.
Here's a guy that's just not making any progress. Remember that just when we went to the caution for rain, we got the report that there was a miss in Jerry Nadeau's engine. They speculated it might be an ignition box. They were going to try and change to the backup system when we went back to full-speed racing. Then they also speculated it might have been a valve spring going bad, and I would say by the fact that Nadeau has fallen off the back of the pack that it is the valve spring, and he's in some pretty serious trouble here with his, 129 laps left to go in this race.
I would just bet you that Tony Urey's telling him right now, don't use the car up. You have a great race car. Don't get aggressive right now. You're in the lead. Nobody's catching you.
Of course, Tony Stewart in 1999 won 3 races as a rookie, the first Winston Cup rookie ever to do so. Dale Earnhardt Jr. could pull that feat off tonight if he scores the victory here.
Well, actually, he's won 3, but one of them wasn't a point race. So
yeah,
that doesn't really count.
It's an asterisk race.
It is, and the things that really matter are the point races.
Now we'll see if Rusty Wallace has the muscle to run down Dale Earnhardt Jr. He has a clear racetrack in between he and Dale Earnhardt Jr. And if he can close in now, that'll tell you he has a great race car.
I'll tell you what, he's got a lot of fans. They had a fan appreciation day at his shop yesterday. 4,000 people showed up. They had to go send the truck out for more hamburgers, and he brought them all back. Didn't have enough yet to send them back out for still more.
Been talking about Jerry Nadeau and speculating that the engine problem is worsening. Mike Hogwood, how about it?
Indeed it is. I just talked to Tony Furr, and he had a dejected look on his face, and I looked up at him, and he just looked at me and said, valve springs.
Wow.
And he just told him to ride it out, but they're really down on horsepower right now.
Jerry Nadeau has led 115 of the 273 laps tonight. Doesn't look like this is going to be the night for Winston Cup win number 1.
One of the real problems with valve springs is not just that the engine could get soft. That valve starts bouncing too deep into the cylinder, could bounce off a piston. That could be the end of the engine and the end of the night.
There's Robbie Gordon back on track after serving the 5-lap penalty. That penalty put him all the way back to 40th position, the last car running in the event. Scott Pruitt, Ricky Craven, and Bill Elliott, the 3 drivers that have fallen out of the event. And the leader, Dale Jr., by the Robbie Gordon machine.
Well, Tony Urey said this car was going to be faster as the race wore on. It's been an absolute rocket all night long. Can't imagine it getting any quicker.
There's Mike Skinner running in 4th spot, 3 seconds behind the leader. See his scoring serial on the night. Been very steady, very solidly up in the top 10, except for that one stretch where he got shuffled back.
And Mike Skinner has a gear in the car that they told me they put in there to run 600 miles. They didn't want to see the rain. They think they'll get stronger as the night goes.
Catching Dale Earnhardt, his teammate, to race for 3rd position. Skinner took just 2 tires on the set of pit stops back at lap 131 that got him up in the lead at that point for a couple of laps in the event.
Interesting stat on Mike Skinner is that every time he has run Lowe's Motor Speedway and finished the race, he has done better than the last time he ran here. He was 3rd in October of last year, 9th in this race last year.
Looking from Dale Earnhardt Jr. back to Rusty Wallace to check the interval between the top two. There it is. On the stopwatch, that is 1.333 seconds. Back underway in the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte. More on